We have our main lunch and learn with Kimberly Kean here to talk to us about numbers that matter because we all know numbers matter, right? I also wanted to introduce Rich Rye. Oh, wait, Rich isn't here. Yeah, he's stuck in traffic. So otherwise, we give him the opportunity to give a plug for 1-800 water damage. So I'll try to do it for him. 1-800 water damage. I happen to know this, is the franchise that he represents was the very first 1-800 water damage franchise in the US. So it's kind of the flagship location, and he's been there for a long time. I know they take care of their customers. Many people are uh, contractors that work with them are very happy with them. But I mean, I think they take care of it all the way from that emergency call when everything's wet to all the way back to getting the restoration taken care of. So anyway, wish Rich was here to talk about his business and how he likes to bring donuts and coffee and breakfast to businesses and all of that kind of stuff. And but unfortunately, again, he's stuck in traffic. So it's good to see everybody here. I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly Kean here to talk to us about numbers. And her and Dennis have been kind of trading off doing our lunch and learns for the 2025. And I just want to tell you guys all this. We had a really great strategy session on Friday afternoon with Dennis, Taryn, myself, and Kimberly. And it energized everybody, I think. And I think she's really excited and chomping at the bit to share with you guys. So I will turn it over, Kimberly. Tell us about yourself and take it away.
Sounds good. I am, just getting started in the coaching and training space for plumbing contractors primarily, but a lot of this is applicable to many different trades. So hopefully it's helpful to someone who is watching. Today, I am just going to share some things that I learned that I thought were probably some of the most important things I learned. So I'm going to take a second here to figure out how to share my screen. And it might take me a minute. I don't do this all the time. So if you will bear with me. Okay, do you guys see my screen here? It says numbers that matter.
Yep.
Yeah,
Perfect.
awesome. Okay. So I'm going to share a fair amount of information today. I do have a handout that I created. Taryn's going to share it in the chat. And I am not going to look at the chat too much. So Todd's going to interrupt me if you have a question, but I also am going to stop for questions after we get through this financial numbers section. And then again, of course, at the end, I'm happy to answer any questions, particularly because this is the first time I'm really presenting this information all together in this format. So if there's something that is unclear, actually, I would love the feedback. So you could help me out. All right, going to dive in. So just want to sort of set the story. We operated our business very close to being broke for about 14 years once we took over the business from mom and dad. And that just seemed to be the way it was. And then in 2015, I kind of had a bit of a breakthrough in my understanding of how the systems in our business were working together that did create a very predictable result. And unfortunately, the result was that we were broke all the time. Like we were doing it in a way every day so that we just didn't have any money. So this is the agenda for today. I want to go over financial statements, the importance of them, the profit and loss numbers that you see that really matter for your financial success, the operations numbers that matter, and then what to do with them. So it's kind of what my plan is. I really just want to share the framework that we used in our business to grow about 25 to 30% year over year, and we did it while maintaining profitability through that growth. So in fact, we couldn't have funded the growth without the profitability. So one saying that I really like, I certainly did not coin, but I really like it, is that revenue is vanity, but profit is sanity. So it can feel really good to have this really high top number, but profit is the thing that brings sanity and peace to your life, that makes running a business fun, that lets you do all of the fun things that come with owning a good business. So let's dive into what they are. So for perspective, I went to business school, got my business degree, but it really didn't help me learn how to read my financial statements for our small plumbing business. It was really, I don't know if I was just particularly dense, but I learned so much more from fellow business owners in the plumbing and HVAC space, which is partly why I'm sharing this, because it was very relevant to what I was doing, whereas my business degree was so focused on big business in a way that I had trouble translating to a small business. So it was really a lot of learning on the job. And I really feel like you don't have to understand everything on your P&L, but there are some things, which is your profit and loss statement, but there are some things that you really do need to understand and focus on. And really that profit and loss statement or income statement, whatever you prefer to call it, it's just a report card on your business. It shows you at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year. It just gives you a report card about how you did. And in order to get a good, something good to analyze, you do need accuracy. You need clean financial statements. And that is really crucial for making decisions. If your financial statements are not accurate, you basically are getting garbage in, so you'll get garbage out and you won't make good decisions. So really you're examining that profit and loss statement to find the results of the existing systems in your business. And even if they're not good, they're going to tell you something about your business and tell you about where you're winning and where you're losing. So let's look at the first two metrics that I think you should track. And here's what really took me years to understand, that these numbers, they're not like a wish or a hopeful thing to aim for or a guess. They're the very beginnings of a financial model that will deliver profitability in your company. So it's not really something that is just like a hope. So back in the early days, I paid multiple consultants to come travel to Seattle from the East Coast and look at my profit and loss statement. I did this twice to have someone come and look. But what I didn't understand about their analysis is that it was like a do or die situation. It was a matter of, would my company live or would my company die? And it just took me a really long time to figure that out. So I paid thousands of dollars to learn less than what I understand now, for sure. It was still a long, painful road, but the very first metric that is vital to the future success of your company, or the present day success as well, is your cost of goods sold labor. And you want to look at it as a percentage of sales. This is what you pay technicians or installers, or your commission for a salesperson. This is the labor that is in the field that produces the revenue that you are relying on to pay all your bills. So you want to aim for somewhere between 20 and 25%. It's not overhead pay. It's not owner pay, unless the owner is in a truck or filling one of those roles of installer or commission salesperson. And it's not office pay. It's not manager pay. It is in the field pay. So 20% is best. And the closer you get to 25%, the harder it will be to meet your profit goals, especially your net profit at the end of the month. And the next one is cost of goods sold materials. This particular statistic is for service work. It might be a little different for HVAC service work. Definitely for HVAC install, it will look different because the cost of materials is so much higher for that equipment. But for a plumbing company, this is right on. And for a drain cleaning company, you would have that, it would be lower. It would be more like 5 to 7% max for drain cleaning. And so problems with material would be, shrinkage or theft or damage or overbuying. Another thing to consider when your materials are not in line with this 10 to 12%, particularly in plumbing, is that you could be priced wrong, right? Like your material markup could be not adequate to reach this goal. So when mine started to fall, particularly during the time of COVID, and right now the space that we're in with inflation and tariffs and all of these things, it's vital to know what your actual costs are for materials and to have an accurate sense of how you're marking that material up and passing that cost along to the customer, because you'll see that percentage grow, and what it's doing is shrinking your profit at the end of the day. So it's vital to pass that along. That was a really hard thing during COVID to keep on top of. So I want to show you where you're going to see this on your P&L in case you're not familiar with it. So at the top of every profit and loss statement or income statement is your sales or your income. And then next, right below that is going to be this cost of goods sold or direct costs section. HVAC will look a little different because it would probably have an equipment line, and but in any case, this is where you're going to see cost of goods sold traditionally on your income statement if it's set up well for you to analyze your service business. And ultimately your goal, there's a lot of other numbers on this in addition to labor and materials, but your goal is that all of these things lined up or added up will get to a maximum of 40% in this cost of goods sold category. And it can go as high as 45%, but again, the higher you get off of the higher these numbers get, the more difficult it is to come out with a net profit at the end, because really you're just spending your money that you might really need to fund your overhead and your growth and your advertising and all of that. So ultimately, even though there are these other categories in cost of goods sold, the two real important drivers of profitability for your company are going to be how you price your labor and how you price your materials. And these can be indications of whether you are priced right if you're hitting these targets, or if you are priced too low. And so that is a huge factor in hitting these goals. So I just focus on these two because they're giant expenses in your business, and they are going to ultimately drive how much money you have left over after you produce the work in the field. So, and the money that you have left over is your gross margin. So halfway down, on mine, it was usually like about a third down on my income statement when I printed it, was my gross margin. That's on the profit and loss statement. And it is simply sales minus your cost of goods sold. You come up with a gross margin number. And really, this is just measuring how efficiently you produce your product or in the installation of these materials and services in your customer's home. And a gross margin lower than 55 to 60% means that you probably won't hit your profit goals as you grow. There are certain things that your business is going to need as you grow and scale, whether it's growing from, 3 techs to 5 techs to 6 techs to 10 techs, or whatever your goal is. If you're not able to work on the system in your business that hits a 55 to 60% gross margin, it will be difficult to fund things like rent on a facility that you need to run the business, or overhead labor to grow your CSR team, for example. So here's where you see gross profit on the profit and loss statement. It's just after your direct costs. And you have to run the statement particularly in order to see these things as a percentage of sales. I mean, you can always just take whatever the number is and divide it by your total sales number, and that will give you the percentage, but most accounting software will allow you to select printing the percentage for all of these numbers as a percentage of income, so that it's really easy for you to look at when you are running your financial statements. Okay, so next I want to talk about the other statistic that was on that slide before, which was total labor as a percentage of sales. So this includes your field labor and all of your overhead labor, office, any managers, and this is where you would put owner salary in your overhead labor. And if it's lower than 30, you might be in a position where you need to strategically hire in your office if you want to grow beyond where you're at. You'll probably need some additional help and support in your office in order to keep your customer service standards high and respond to additional work. And if it's low, you are probably going to need to grow strategically. So you might need to put some money into overhead. So really what you're looking at is, or if it's high, you might need to right size to reach your profitability goals. Like you might need to hire more labor if, to build more revenue. If your total labor as a percentage of sales is too high, then you either need to grow to make it so that you can afford that, or make a hard decision to get to the right total labor percentage. So really, to get this number, you just add your cost of goods sold labor, which is at the top of your profit and loss statement, and you add it to your overhead labor, which is down below your gross margin in your expenses, and you just add it together. So ideally, cost of goods sold labor would be 20%, overhead labor at 10%, with a total labor of 30%. That's really nice, really ideal, hard to get to, particularly if you're growing. You might end up, we would always hire a little in advance, but we always try to keep that below 35% so that we could maintain profitability and fund growth in marketing. But I loved using this as a barometer for, like, if my office staff was having trouble keeping up, I would always look at this overhead labor number and see, is it in line with what the goals are, what the company can afford, or is it time to hire to take the pressure off? Because I also really believed that every position in the company should, like, it should be a job that is sustainable. Like, it should be a living job that you can enjoy. And no one should be really run ragged. Like, if there's a job in the company that I would hate to have, that's not a good sign. And so typically that's like, if you're overworked, it's really tough. And I just want to make another note, like, owner labor goes in here in overhead labor, but this goal is not to cap your compensation as an owner in any way, but it is to, like, sort of keep really closely acquainted with reality. Like, this is what the business can afford. And if you are taking some salary as an owner that is out of line or puts you over the 15%, you should know that that is what your company can afford if you want to maintain profitability. And so my preference as an owner was always to give myself, a salary that was commensurate with the work I was doing, with the size of my company, and that I could depend on. And then take the rest in distributions. And there's always a reason to do that as well for taxes. But I wanted to be able to look at the financials realistically and know what the business could afford for my role, and to grow my compensation based on growing my company, and not just because I wanted it. I'm a big fan of paying yourself whatever you want, but I think that it makes the most sense to look at your company and maintain profitability and take that out as a distribution of some kind for the financial stability of your company. Okay, and the final metric off of the profit and loss statement is net profit, of course, very important metric. And then I want to go over your selling price, which is something that you should be tracking for sure. And your build hours sold. This is another metric that you need to track as you go through your week and your month. So, and this is true whether you're using upfront pricing or time and materials pricing. Really, you have to know exactly how many hours you're selling in a week and in a month in order to make sure you're charging the right price. That selling price and the build hours sold go together. They're very closely related. So I just wanted to talk about this 20% net profit margin. If you give a discount of any kind regularly, you should aim for a higher profit margin than this, like 30% if you want to give a 10% discount, for example. But I just want to talk about the concept of what you set your net profit margin at, and why it's crucial. So according to Yahoo Finance, the average stock market return is between 7.7 to 9.8% annually over the last 2 decades. And like I would imagine that everyone as a business owner understands that you are taking far more risk in your business than you are to passively invest in the stock market. So for taking that higher risk, your returns should be much higher. I remember when I thought about the return I was making on my business, particularly when I was seeing like 3% for the year. And I realized how much more all of my heart, like how much more return there was available in other places. And then all of the heartache and the stress and the financial risk I was taking to be in business, and all the personal guarantees that I'd signed and the trucks that I'd financed. And I realized that there was 10% return available in the stock market if I'd put all my money there instead of investing in my business. And it just really helped put that in perspective for me. And I feel like there's a really positive and a negative side to the profit margin in a business. On the one hand, if you know how to use your business to generate a return, there's literally no better place to make money. There are very few investment vehicles that I'm aware of that you can make 20% a year or 25% a year, or depending on how well you do your business. So that's pretty exciting to me. It's a massive wealth building tool. But the negative is that there's tons of risks. So if you're not making money, I really feel like you do need to figure out how to make money and how to make these metrics work for you, because it doesn't make any sense at all to do all of this work for less than you could get if you just went and bought a rental house, for example, and paid that off and took the rent, right? Like that might get you 4 or 5% a year. And that's super solid and super predictable, and you have a real asset. Or if you put the money in the stock market. But so I really encourage you to think high on this net profit, because you are taking a lot of risk to be in business. Okay, selling price. These are 2 really critical metrics for profitability. I think when Dennis and I started our upfront pricing a lot of years ago, we were at like $286 an hour. I think that was our first upfront price. And I recommend that you calculate this quarterly, at least quarterly. And it's one of the most important decisions that you will make in your company for your selling price. I knew that I had to charge more than it costs in order to make money. But like I said, we started in 2004 charging $286, but it really took us until 2015 to really understand where we were losing money and to feel it in my bones that we absolutely had to charge more than it cost. And to the extent that we were very firm, like we would turn the work away. Like if a customer came and said, hey, would you match this bid? And this bid did not provide for profitability in our company, we would say no. We were not interested in trying to make a job work to make the money. Like we knew what it cost us to be in business, and we would decline work that was not at a price or a value that we could make money at. So I think mindset is super, super important here. Knowing your worth, really believing that the customer pays for everything and the customer's problem is not your problem. In a way, I would think of it as the only way the customer's problem becomes my problem is if I'm literally paying to fix it, right? Like if I am charging less than what it costs to do this work, then I am paying for the customer's problem, and now it's fine. But if I'm charging them more than what it costs me, like my plumbing's fine, it's their plumbing that's broken, and it should be 100% their problem. That's just how I thought about it. So if you don't know how to calculate your selling price, or you need some help with that, I have a QR code at the end where I would be happy to point you in the right direction, or see what you're getting stuck on, because this is such a huge part of profitability. The next one is billed hours sold. So you really do need to know this number and look at it weekly. It's really a cross validation or benchmark of your selling price, because if you say your selling price is X, you say it's $300, or let's be more realistic, it's $500, but you have to sell, in order for it to be $500, you have to sell this many hours in a year, right? Like, and then you take that 52 weeks. Am I actually selling those many hours in a week, in a month, in a year? If you aren't, then that's not the correct selling price. So these things work together, and you have to calculate them at least quarterly. And you should be looking at this, these sold hours weekly, monthly, definitely annually, although please don't wait that long. But you want to make sure that you're taking an honest look at these metrics and how many hours you're selling, so that you're not just left wondering, where did all the money go? So how do you use these metrics? These are the ones from your financial statement, your profit and loss, the ones that I think that you should focus on. There's a lot of numbers on the P&L, but we really focused on those ones. A lot of the rest, unless they raise their head as a problem, we did not focus on them as long as we had these metrics in line. So you want to first print them and look at them, but in order to print them, they need to be accurate. They need to be complete. So a really standard time frame is to have everything into your accounting system by the 10th of the month. And in order to have clean or accurate financials, that means that all of your bank statements need to be reconciled. All of your credit card statements need to be reconciled. And if you bought anything from a supply house, you have reconciled that statement as well, because your goal is you are getting all income and all expenses accurately put or posted in your accounting system, so that you have these financials to print and take a look at. And so then the next thing I recommend is that you meet monthly, whether you're with a business partner or you just have a meeting with me. And you're going to look at this, a spouse, an accountability partner, like whoever that is. You need to meet monthly and look at these financial statements. And sometimes that's not easy. Like, time flies, we're all super busy, and all of a sudden the month is over and you're trying to get the financials done, and before you know it, it can actually be the next month and you never had that meeting. So I'll just share something that we did to make it a priority, so that it was something that we looked forward to doing. For years, we had an owners meeting that was calendared. I think we chose to do it like a certain day of the week and a certain evening, but it was always after the 10th of the month. And so we would just meet at a restaurant. We would use the business to treat us to dinner, which is not fully deductible, but we didn't care, because we really just wanted to have an event to look forward to. And we wanted to take the time to look at the financials, strategize about the next month, and where we were going, identify problems, answer questions, dive into numbers that we didn't understand. So we just prioritize that. And I encourage you to do the same, to just put it to calendar the meeting, to give yourself plenty of time, and to invite everyone that you need to discuss that. And then you want to compare, when you're looking at the financial statements, you want to compare them to historical data. You want to know if, like, am I seeing a trend where this cost is increasing? Am I priced right? And you also want to compare them to these best practices that we're talking about. Your cost of goods sold labor, 20 to 25%, your cost of goods sold material, 10 to 12%, your gross margin, etc. You're looking to compare, how far off am I? And then why do I think there was a difference? And what system in my business do I need to fix in order to make the goals that I've stated, and or that you have, the goals that you want for yourself. Like, you may not be selling the labor hours you planned for, and that precipitates a talk about the selling price. And, a lot of it can come back to that, actually. So you just want to make adjustments after you have looked at your financial statements, compared it to historical data, made sure that you're not missing any trends. You want to make adjustments. After all, this is your business, and this is the data that you need to make adjustments so that you'll make money. So you get to work on it, on making adjustments. You're the only one who can do it. And I also want to emphasize that when you're looking at these metrics, typically you have a system problem. It's not a people problem. When your system of how you do business returns results that you didn't want or you didn't think you were aiming for, it's really important to understand that you likely have a system problem and not a people problem. Like, you don't suck. Your people don't suck. You just have a system in your business that you need to tweak and fix so that it produces a result that you anticipate. And when you're not getting a result you anticipate, you just identify the system that needs fixing. And I think it's a really important discipline to look at all of these things from a system perspective so that we're not blaming, and making sure that we're ultimately holding ourselves to the highest level of accountability as an owner, that I'm going to make sure it's not my system that's broken first before I start looking for someone to, like, oh, they didn't do this or they didn't do that. Anyway, I think that's a really important thing, because when you have a good system, it can return a good result, and it's not very reliant on people, thankfully. All right, so this is that part of the talk that I want to pause for questions if anyone has any. And those are the numbers on the P&L, and we're going to move into operational numbers. So any questions? Todd, you were my questions guy. Anything, or should I move on?
No, there's no questions in the chat.
Okay.
If no one's raising their hand or speaking up, I would say go ahead and move on.
Okay, that's great. As Dennis says, I did it perfectly. Okay, I'm going to move on. So I just want to set the stage for the next part of the what I'm going to talk about operations numbers. In 2014, we made a software change in our business that really helped us track all of these operational numbers that I'm going to talk about next very accurately. Like, we were so excited. Like, we had new visibility into our business that we did not have before. And so we were working hard on making these work. And then in 2000, but we were still broke. That's kind of the point I want to make. We were not making any more money. We were working on all these operational numbers, but we were not seeing any success translate to our bottom line. So in 2015, midway through, I started to understand how the financial model of the business would play with these operations numbers, and I could not do one without the other. And so I led with those financial model numbers, because even though we had the operational metrics for at least a year, if not a little bit longer, it wasn't until we started to follow through with how that hit the profit and loss statement and how that affected our finances that we could actually make any traction on making money. And so once we figured out and we combined them with a financial model, we started to have money left over at the end of the month. We started to be able to pay off our credit cards every month instead of carry a balance. We started to be able to not let our creditors be our biggest, our suppliers be our biggest creditors. We were paying our bills on time. We were taking our discount every month. And so I just want to emphasize that both of these models, the operational numbers that I'm going to go over and these financial numbers, they work together as a system, and a focus on one without the other it'll be hard to see the results. That's why I am presenting them all together. This was a real difference maker in our business. So these are the next four metrics these are all the metrics for operational numbers that I think are important to really focus on. And there's really no mystery here. It's just data. And I guess the only mystery is if you're not looking at the data or you don't have a system that will give you these numbers, then you have a little more work to do. But when you are looking at these 4 things happening in your business, you really can start to see issues that are coming up in front of you before they hit you, before they even hit your P&L. You're just going to see like, oh, wow, if we don't fix this, we are going to see this on our profit and loss statement at the end of the month. We might not see it there now, but we are going to. So it really makes the business a little bit more predictable to operate. And these are the metrics that drive the day-to-day in your business. The P&L is your report at the end of the month. It's your grade when the month is over. But this is like your action plan. These are the things that you can influence on a day-to-day basis that will drive the results that you see on the P&L. But these ones you can actually get your hands on, and you have something to do, and you can have something to work on during the day, which I find really exciting and helps me feel effective. So the first one is your number of leads from your marketing plan. You want to measure this because you want to know if your marketing is working. It can be one of the largest expenses in your business, particularly if you're trying to grow. So you want to know, are you getting the leads that you expected, and what adjustments need to be made in your marketing system? So we needed 3.5 calls per day per service technician. And I know that no one can take 3.5 calls, but when we did the math over a long period of time and checked this over and over and over, that's just what we needed in our business to have a good enough steady stream of work that we were not overwhelming any one person. We weren't pushing calls on people, but we had enough work that it generally felt good. And there was also enough space that if someone unexpectedly sold out for the day or sold out for the week, like we could accommodate that. And our number was 3.5 calls per day. But you might have a different number. If you're in HVAC sales, like 2 leads per day for a salesperson for that division of your company, that might be perfect for you. So it's important to decide as a baseline for your company, what do you feel like is a steady stream of work for your company, and then establish that as a baseline and measure it. And what you're looking for is my marketing system returning the number of leads I need per technician in order to keep me busy? And I emphasize the per technician part as well, although you can look at it as an aggregate. But if you know how much you need per technician per workday, then you also know how you can increase your marketing as you add to your team. So it just makes it like it becomes very plug and play as you scale. If you just know how many more calls you're going to be looking for per truck, per technician, et cetera. And you'll want to analyze this day to day in your operations, look at it at least monthly, because you want to make adjustments to your marketing plan if you're not hitting that number. Okay, and the next one is a CSR stat. This is your booking rate. And to me, I think of this as the very first place that I will leak calls out of my operations strainer, if you will. Like, I'm not going to be able to book every single call that comes in because sometimes it's not going to be a real lead or whatever. But I found 80% was pretty, for us, we felt like that was very good operationally in our call center when we had a dispatch fee. So with a dispatch fee and good scripts, 80% is a really solid number to hit. If you have a company where you do not have a dispatch fee, certainly you should raise that booking rate expectation up to 85%. I've seen it as high as 90, 95%, but I have seen that literally on software, but I did not achieve it. And we made great profit at 80 and 85% respectively. So I definitely feel like I can encourage that. So if your numbers aren't here, this is the very first place that I would work on operationally. This is the first system that I would fix, because pouring more money into leads will only help you go broke faster if you're not getting the return on the existing leads that you're having. And it can make a giant difference in revenue and profit. And there's no sense in paying more money for leads if you're just going to lose them anyway. You can increase your revenue, increase your profit just by increasing this booking rate. So first place I would work on. And then the next one is a technician stat. This is the technician's conversion rate. We always aimed for 75%. We didn't always hit it, but this is the next hole that you will definitely lose opportunities for revenue just lose it. It'll run right out of your operations strainer again. So 75% is 3 out of 4. And this is the next place that you're losing revenue and losing profitability. So things that you would do to work on this conversion rate issue is first establish, like I'm always going to come back to systems, right? So first you would establish a company-wide process for how you want your calls run, provide scripts for your employees, give them a good price book tool, like essential for them to be successful. You want to provide them a uniform so that they look good and the customer has the same experience every time someone comes to their door. You want to establish a minimum for grooming, like this is what we look like, this is what's acceptable in our area. You also want to have a system that works together, your dispatch team or your call center team. You want them to work together so they set the technician up for success. They can really set the tech up for success by helping you let them know when they're on the way or when they're running late or not making promises when they were booking the call that were impossible to make good on. And all of these things that happen before the technician even gets to the customer's home can set them up for success and affect your conversion rate. And again, it's a system of doing business that supports you or hurts you. And so then when you are developing scripts for the technicians, you really want to focus on why they are the right person for the job, help them develop why they're the right person, a script for that, and then why you're the right company to do the work. Don't leave it up to them for it to be a mystery. Give them a script about why you think you're the best company. What is the special thing about you, and train them on how to say it. And then why your solution or their diagnosis aligns with the customer's stated needs. Now, this is going to vary from call to call, right? But even teaching that, hey, as I present my options, my goal is to align my solution with what they need. Like this is always my goal in my script when I present. And then why now is the very best time for them to buy. Like it's not going to get any cheaper with inflation or whatever the thing is, right? For your company, why you think now is the best time. They've already taken the day off work, whatever it is. Like there's a saying that a confused customer won't buy. So you also want to work on eliminating like industry lingo and jargon from your scripts and from your conversation, even as a discipline in the office and in your meetings. And then the other thing to really emphasize is giving the technicians enough space to take their time with the customer so that they are willing and able to answer any questions and not rush. So because that all goes into the presentation before the customer buys and you want them to not be confused. All right, so I'm going to move on to the last one, average invoice. Also a technician stat. And you want to start with whatever your company's average is right now, if you don't measure this already, but a lot of people already do. And you just want to start with your company average and set the baseline. And I find this to be such an interesting stat. I love it because it really starts to tell you how much a call is worth to you when it comes into your office. Like you can be busy all day and I mean, I used to be a CSR in my business. And so you're answering the phones. And when you start to realize this call that's coming in, this customer on the other end of the line is worth $1,500 to me. This is worth $1,600 if I can book this call. Like it just really starts to put perspective on the importance of the job. Like our software would actually record for a CSR at the end of the year or at the end of a quarter. We could show them, look at the revenue that you booked with your efforts. Like it was super cool. So it starts to really, when you measure average invoice and look at that, it starts to really make you aware of how much every precious lead is that comes into your office. And so all of the tips to improve conversion rate will also help you improve your average invoice that I shared before. And here are some additional ones. You don't want to rush your techs to their next job. Like this is a big cooperative system between your dispatch people and your technician, because the dispatcher, I always would say the perfect day in the business for a dispatcher is the absolute worst day for revenue in your business, because the dispatcher is going to want every call, you're going to want to get to every call on time all day long. And that is not really your best bet for revenue. Like, you want, if you're really looking at best revenue, you want to sell out on your first call every day, all the texts. So this is like a really important discipline in your business, where we would always say, we are going to count on the money that's sold. Like, sold money always trumps future money, guest money, hope money, right? If it's sold, we're going to stay, we're going to do that work. And we're going to prioritize whatever's left on the schedule, because sold money is for sure money. Another job, like if I go to 4, I might close 3. Depending on the day, I might close 1. It's just, anyway, we didn't want to lose anything, so that's what we prioritize. And so that put a little more pressure on our dispatch team. But we just didn't rush text to the next job. We rescheduled, we let them stay. We hoped they would stay. We hoped they would sell out. And then the other thing that happens is, when you're rushing a tech through jobs, or they know, okay, they know when they start the day, they have 4 calls to get to, and they know that they got to be home in time for dinner with their wife or their significant other or whatever they have going on. And if you're going to make them go on all those 4 calls, they're going to make sure that they finish on time. They're going to do their very best, and you are going to suffer revenue wise. So we just took it 1 call at a time, and we didn't rush. And I encourage you to adopt some system or practice in that regard. So again, taking time, and then when the techs are on the job, they should take their time to inform the customer of everything they find, with no pressure to sell it, of course. But even if they find something, coach that if they find something in the middle of the repair, they just like present it. They don't say, well, I've already found enough, and I don't want to have to go back into the presentation mode. I don't want to have to build more options. And obviously this is going to be up to a tech, but that if they want the best revenue, that's the best practice. And then offer 3 to 5 options for every repair or replacement. And as the owner, I think, you should check those estimates to verify that they're actually presenting those options, because customers really do like options instead of a one choice thing. And then as you're presenting, as you're developing your scripts and the way that you want your calls run, as a business, you're developing your system, start with the top option, the most expensive option first during your presentation. If you can just imagine it, when you see the first option, the customer is waiting and waiting for the price. You see the first option, it's the most expensive option. And as you go, they get less and less expensive. It's a less stressful process as they go along. Whereas if you start with your least expensive option, and then there's this buildup of tension till they get to the most expensive one, it's just not the best way to feel as a customer. And so I just encourage you to start with your top most expensive option first, and just get it out of the way so that the customer can start thinking about those options. And I think that I just want to emphasize how all of these numbers, these metrics, work together like a machine to produce the results that your company is producing. There are some things to consider when you are feeling slow or revenue is down. And I want to encourage you to look at all of these metrics, because they're all operational. But again, these are the ones you can get your hands on when you're feeling it's slow, or when you're feeling revenue is slipping. And you want to first look at all of these metrics and compare them to your historical data. Don't assume that it is because you don't have enough calls, or it's really slow right now. Whatever the thing is that is your go-to, like why you feel like it's slow. You want to look at these data points and compare each one to your historical data. And then you can understand which one is down from your company's typical performance. And then that is the metric that you work on immediately. And this is the order that you should start on, going from left to right. Number of leads, those are, your calls, your booking rate, then your conversion rate, and then your average invoice. And this is also the order to work on these systems. So that understanding took a little while for us to get in our business. Just realizing how all of these metrics work together to drive the business. So we would often blame the call count when we were slow. It was like, oh my gosh, we must need more calls. And but the thing was, I was the person in charge of marketing. So I really hated hearing we need more calls. We're really slow. So like I started this discipline of actually let's look at the data, because if it's true, right, I want the best for our company too. And we all need to own the thing that we're responsible for. But we would tend, what I noticed is that we would all tend to focus on our individual pet numbers, and usually not the one we were responsible for, right? Like we would think, oh, it's this thing that is causing us to be slower. It's this thing that is a problem with revenue because, it wasn't our thing. And we thought someone else could do better, of course. So what really helped us was working, just creating an environment where we could work together really cooperatively, and no silos, no blame, just honest conversation and really good questions about what was real and this data that we were measuring. And so, um, yeah, there's just no blame when we're analyzing and evaluating the business systems, because there are just systems that lead to these results. And when you measure them, you can pinpoint exactly where to work on the business. So, for example, um, we would say it feels slow, right? And we would think, well, is it calls? That's the first place we would look. Is it our number of leads? So we would just compare that to our data and see, well, are our leads as expected or not? If they were as expected, then we would look at the next thing, booking rate. Is our booking rate in line with what we expected? Because this is a system, it's all working together. If the booking rate was in line, we'd go to the next one, conversion rate. Is conversion rate in line with what we expected or not? And then the last one, our average invoice. Is it up? Is it down? Is it the same? And usually during that analysis, one of those will become very clear that it is not in line with what our expectations were. And it gave us the system to work on and the thing to train on, so that we were not working against each other and doing a lot of blaming. We were just working on the problem and creating the solution as we were doing it. So it's these operational numbers, really important to review weekly and to track them so that you know what to work on. And another thing to watch for is when you get super busy. Like one of the most curious things that we found is when we were super busy, especially in the summer, we would have an unreal amount of leads. But we would often see our average invoice drop because we were rushing. Like we just weren't doing the discipline of taking each call one call at a time. We were feeling so busy and so much pressure. And so you really can see these numbers just play out. It's not like it's good or bad, it just is. And you want to keep as close to your goals as possible. It helps you be the most successful. So review those operations numbers weekly. And then financial numbers are reviewed monthly from accurate financial statements. And the more you do this and tweak your systems, you realize that the business is a system. And the more well-defined you have made that system, the more you have documented it, the more you know the levers to pull, the more predictable your results will be month after month. And so again, usually you have a system problem when these elements aren't working together, not a people problem. Unless the person is you, because you haven't created the systems, and then that's a you problem, but it's not your team problem. And so anyway, this is the big picture. These are the 11 metrics that I think are the most important drivers of your financial future. And I really hope that this was helpful. I do have on the next slide, if you have a question that you want to take offline, or you're not sure how to get to a certain metric, that is a QR code that you can book just a quick 30-minute call on my schedule when I'm available. Be happy to talk to anybody, or that's my cell phone and my email. So that's it for me.
Wow, that was really great, Kimberly.
Thanks.
I love how the numbers can tell the story, and really become an efficient manager when you can look at the numbers, find out where that pain point is, and go work on that system so that you don't have to expend so much energy, right? Like,
Yeah. And it took us years of pain and trial and error. So really, I hope that there was something useful. That would be awesome.
yeah, no, 100% it was.
Oh, Kathy's got her hand raised.
Questions? Yes, Kathy.
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay.
Thank you, Kimberly. because we track all this stuff. But I have to tell you, your presentation was very straightforward, very simple. And I know we're going to get the recording that I can use for the rest of the team, right?
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I loved about the presentation is the flow just made sense. And so while, I didn't have any big epiphanies, that was valuable. So I wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
Any other questions?
And
All
in
right,
case anyone missed it, there is a handout which just has all these metrics with the numbers. In case that's just a helpful way, like Kathy, to your point, to share it. There's that handout that has it on there. So, yeah.
Yes, Taryn placed the link in the chat box a couple of times. So,
Okay.
So one of the things that we had happen was Rich Wright found his way out of traffic.
Oh, hi, Rich. And I took almost all the time. Sorry about that.
Hello.
No, it's perfect because we can
Found
give
my
him
way
the
to the
last.
side of the road.
Yeah, we'll give you the last few minutes to plug your business, even though I kind of already tried to.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. Hopefully I didn't interrupt anybody. Thank you, Kimberly. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm sorry I didn't get all of it. As I tell everybody, we're all lucky to have your knowledge here being blessed on us. We appreciate you. If you don't know me yet, very welcome. If you don't know me yet, my name is Rich Rye. I'm the water damage guy from 1-800-WATER DAMAGE. I've been in the business 26 years, and specifically with my company, 1-800-WATER DAMAGE. Started off as a little house and grew into a national franchise. And we're here to help Puget Sound residents with water, sewage, mold, smoke and fire damage, any kind of content cleaning that needs to happen. And we appreciate every single customer we get. As Kimberly was saying, every referral is so important in finding out that cost of a lead. Our company goes through that and monitors that regularly. It is, I firmly believe, like you do, right? It's important to capture the customers and make the most out of the customers you already have, for sure. And when it comes to referrals from plumbing company owners, managers, service people in the industry, we take that really seriously. I personally take that seriously. Every single referral. I try to do my best to make sure that communication is clear, that we're servicing your customer in a way that you would be proud of. Since when we get a referral from you, we understand, we're very clear that we are an extension of your customer service, and we're here to make you look good. That's all I got. I'm available 24/7 as our company is, but I think personally is why I've been successful is that people are able to reach out to me with a customer or questions about any job in progress any time of day or night. I'm always available, even if I'm skiing on the mountain in Whistler. But, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate you going out of your way and jumping in here and joining us. So appreciate that. Kimberly, thank you very much for the presentation. Everybody else that was here, thank you for attending. Watch for the information for our next one in June, and y'all have a very great day.
Thanks. And
Thank
hey,
you.
it's fun to see all my friends on here. So, hey, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Right.
That was wonderful.
Awesome. I'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.